This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by our bannermen, Lord Jason of House Ross, Lady Amanda of House Richardson, Lord Adam the Young Bull of House Parker, Sir Peter of House Whittingham, Sandy the Dragon, Blood of Queen Daenerys, and Lady of Jameson, Lord Nelson of the Long Isle, Sir Joshua of House Ross, Lady Liz of House Hendricks, Sir Matthew of House Perry.
This podcast is protected by Lord Hunter the Foul-Mouthed, Lady Amanda of House Ryan, Lady Rajal of House Stevens, Sir Ron of House Golson, Lord Robert the Unfrozen of House Butler, Lord Paramount of Skagos Island. Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra, the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we are into Arya I of A Clash of Kings.
Woo! Hey man, we're here.
Yeah.
It's time for the War of the Five Kings to begin.
Yeah.
And it really starts right here.
It does. It does. The war is beginning. It's picking up. We're wishing everyone out there good fortune in the wars to come. Okay.
Absolutely. So, I mean, last week we hit the prologue. We learned a little bit about Patchface, a lot of new players, Stannis Baratheon, Davos Seaworth. Times are changing in Westeros.
Yes. Yeah, they are. Yeah, we got, the powers are emerging. We've got characters spread out, going through some hard times, developing, as we see with Arya in this chapter. So, yeah, it is exciting. I am more like I'm pumped to get into like the meat of this book because you're going to learn a lot. Actually, even, and we'll get to it later, but the description of the wagon, even as they go north, and like the Night's Watch and what's happening there with Yorn and stuff, it's cool. It's cool to be back in it and thinking about that kind of stuff and looking at the detail. And when I do, I just keep thinking, it's not going to be anything like the show. It's going to be its own thing, friends.
I know. As we said, the first book and the first season go really hand in hand. And then after that, it's so tricky because I think being away from the books for so long when we were talking about the seasons, as season 8 came and went, we were saying things like, oh yeah, the books and the show, they're really close, they're not that different. But then you start diving back into the books and you're like, yeah, I don't know. Actually,
right.
Things a little more different.
Yeah.
You really get to see, especially in a chapter like this one, which we'll get to here, kind of the road is not really pleasant. The King's Road, and the road Arya has to travel. Right. And I think the first few chapters in this book, we go from Arya, and then next week we'll be talking about Sansa. Man, they're in a really bad spot.
Yes.
It's like as our story begins, you think a book ago around these early chapters, everything's pretty hunky dory. The king comes. Oh, there's going to be some changes. We're going to go to King's Landing. It's exciting. And here we are, one book later, and your dad is dead. Your brother is declaring war. Your other brother was pushed out of a window.
Yep.
I mean, wow! So many things have happened. Arya's on the run, essentially, trying to run away from the Kingsguard and the Red Cloaks and all of the City Guard. Yeah, trying to go unnoticed as she tries to go back towards Winterfell. So it's not looking very good.
No, it's not. And it's just gonna. But, it's crazy. It starts off like that. It's really weird, too, isn't it? How you have one or two characters who, we love the Starks, we're kind of bred to love them, and then we see them go through, as you say, this turmoil. But then it's like, for that redemption arc for the entire family, you start to think, here it is in Robb, And it's like, but the other characters are still suffering. It's just such a roller coaster, and it's such a journey. And I know he's trying to parallel it with, like, historical stories and then just be more realistic, but it's something. It is something.
Yeah.
So This book is one of the best.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, move over here to Small Council.
Yeah.
Sir Ezra, how you doing, man?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, winter's not coming anymore to Ohio. It's here. So we're getting like 3 to 4 inches. There's this arc. I don't know. You're out there on the West Coast, so you might not know about this. But it's supposed to be like record-setting temperatures in like over 300 different locations here in like the Midwest to whatever. Like it's East Coast. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy. So preparing for that, my friend. That's what I'm preparing for right now.
Hey, well, out here on the West Coast, it is actually still a pretty warm, considering, at least in the Pacific Northwest. The rain season hasn't really started yet. I feel like it's about to.
Yeah.
Luckily, we've still had some decent weather. I went to the coast, as we call it out here, out there on the other side of the country. They call it the beach. Here we call it the coast because they're two very different things.
Yeah.
When I think of going to the beach, I'm thinking of Florida or
right. Yeah.
North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Virginia Beach, sunny, warm. Yeah, here we go to the coast in the Pacific Northwest where it is 30 degrees year round.
Yeah,
and rain and kind of dry, rainy. But it was kind of nice actually driving from Portland out there. You just drive through kind of the mountains a little bit and the forests, and it's foggy and just something about it.
Dude, okay, I'm totally gonna expose myself here.
Whoa! Thank God this is an audio recording.
There's no visual component to this yet.
Yeah.
But dude, it makes every time you say you're going to the coast, and this is I can't believe I'm saying this. It makes me think of the episode in Twilight when they go out to the beach and they're out there surfing and stuff. With like Bella and.
Right.
Edward, the Cullens don't come here, so I can't believe I said that.
The Cullens don't go there for a lot of reasons. One, because they're not allowed.
Right.
Because of the pact that they have with what's the werewolf's guy's names?
The tribe.
What's their last names? Yeah, what's their last name?
Gosh,
it's
I don't know.
Jacob something. Right, and then also because they shine like diamonds. Sorry, we literally just ruined Twilight for people. So, but it's great. Hey man. Maybe we'll do a Twilight podcast at some point.
Hey, you never know.
You never know. We'll just add that in.
Right. Yeah. So, anyways, it's just kind of funny. It just I thought of that.
Yeah.
When you head up, Forks is out there by you. So
it is. Well, it's north. It's really north of here. But actually, a lot of the locations that they use to film are relatively close for me. Actually, the cafe that they go to is in a little town called. I think it's the Carver Cafe, but I think it's in Damascus, Oregon, which I think actually I live like 15 minutes from it. And then the town where like the high school is, I think is in, what is it, Kalama or Kelso, Washington, which is just north of Portland, and then you have Vancouver, Washington. So it's like kind of in that region, I believe.
Yeah.
There's like a sign. There's like a sign on one of the buildings that was like Twilight was filmed here. You can see on the I-5, which is the road that goes from Seattle to Los Angeles, or San Diego. So
what I want to know is where did they film the scene where Jacob's got his shirt off in the rain? You know what I'm saying? It's like
right.
Where is that
at? I'm still looking. Hopefully I can go. Maybe I can go recreate it. Right. Yeah.
Oh,
gonna need some serious visual effects there to make
Oh my gosh, dude! But anyways, yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, heading out to the coast. That's awesome. And hey, we both have an update, right? We've got some hyperspace news. Ironically.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of big stuff coming out. Disney Plus comes out tomorrow. That's pretty exciting, which means the Mandalorian, their big show. I've been talking about it a lot. I have, this entire weekend taken off for the, 7 seasons of Goof Troop I'm going to be watching. So, I mean, sign me up for that.
Try and stop him, guys. Try and stop him.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know how many seasons of Goof Troop there are, but I'm going to find out. So
Jiminy Christmas. Yeah, it looks cool. I'm excited. It's coming, Disney Plus tomorrow. It should be cool.
You're excited? You're excited for Goof Troop? I mean, it is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Is that going to be on there?
DuckTales? Absolutely, it is.
Wow.
Tailspin.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, is that
Tailspin?
That's all Disney?
Darkwing Duck. Yes, it is, man.
What? Wow.
Darkwing Duck, man. And then they bought, Disney bought some of the rights to the Fox stuff. So the X-Men animated series, the entire Simpsons is going to be on there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Then there's all the old Disney classic movies. I mean, what's your favorite Disney classic movie?
Oh my gosh, is Robin Hood going to be on there?
Robin Hood's on there, man.
Yeah, that's the one. Do.
Sword and the Stone. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hercules, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Toy Story. It's all going to be on there.
Wow, that's awesome. That's exciting.
Again, I mean, Disney, if you want to sponsor us for how much we type Disney Plus and we're literally getting nothing out of it, I'm just super excited.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We need. Yeah, if you want to send us something, that'd be fine. Yeah.
So that seems to be my plan. But and speaking of that whole thing, the cool thing about it is that we're going more and more away from cable. I think this is just another step in that long line of eventually there won't be cable, there will just be services, and you just buy into whatever company you want. And I think it's cool because it causes these other companies to have to challenge each other, and that's where we look at why I think it's a big reason perhaps why HBO said no to The Long Night and yes to the Targaryen War, because I mean everyone's getting their big killer show on Hulu and Netflix and HBO, and it's becoming kind of a war of the five kings, really. I mean, how many big companies are there? So I mean, I think that might be another reason. You look at Disney Plus. I think Disney Plus is going to be like enormous. I mean, it's going to be huge. It's going to be a huge deal. So I mean, the Mandalorian budget I just looked at was $120 million. That's like as much as a movie.
Wow. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we definitely will be covering the Mandalorian series over on Hyperspace Hangout, our other podcast there. So if you guys are interested, and we're doing daily content there as well. So we just wanted to kind of throw that out there as we get ready for this release tonight. So, yeah.
Hey, man. And then when we get back to some more Targaryen stuff on TV, we'll go back. We'll do some daily content over there. It might be a year or so until we get it, but you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, wait, and while we're plugging projects, we got one more in the works too. We're working on, just a little something. We're gonna have a teaser. I think I'm gonna have that teaser up this weekend. I'm hoping. Okay. I'm doing that teaser episode so folks can kind of go subscribe. I might even do it later. I'm just
And I believe there's a Patreon episode that you and I recorded that is going up sometime
tonight
soon. Okay, there we go. It's a Patchface episode. So we talked about Patchface last week. We have some Patchface content coming. I know that's what everyone's super excited for. I mean, I just need more Patchface.
Well, you're going to get them. I mean, there's going to be more.
Well, I mean, it's a big deal. Actually, the theory we break down is actually, now I'm thinking about it. I was thinking about that. We did that last week. It's actually pretty insane. The theory we broke down, where they talk about what his rhymes mean, even some of them saying that it relates back to old Valyria, and he talks about the smoke rising, and it's pretty crazy actually.
Yeah, it's like him being the mouthpiece for which I don't want to spoil, but it's interesting. It's different than what we had talked about when we did Follow Up Friday, and we were talking about because I think some of the bigger YouTubers had kind of just believed that he was associated with the drowned god, but there's a lot of people who think it's nothing with Gurm is that obvious, and so there's more to him than meets the eye. And the crazy thing is that Melisandre is scared of him essentially.
Yes, she is. Yeah, and that is pretty interesting because there's only really two people she ever sees in her flames that she talks about how she is either scared of them or she finds it disturbing, and it's Patchface and Bloodbraven. So
yeah, pretty wild.
So all right, man. Well, I don't think do we have a captain's report here?
Well, I think those just started back up in the Facebook group. I mean, I don't. There was. Is there one in here? Let me see.
Maybe. I haven't.
Okay. Well, yeah. This is just a few things here from this is while we were on hiatus during that time where we took a couple weeks off there, and let's see the comment we got from Lord Robert. Just that while Captain's Report is on hiatus, comment with your favorite scene from the series, book, and or show. Feel free to explain why or how it could have been better in your opinion? So this was sort of that transitioning when we were going from Game of Thrones to A Clash of Kings, and so we can go. Yeah, we'll read a couple of these because actually we don't have a Maester study today. So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll just go through these. So Bobby Butler has here my personal favorite scene. It's a small one in Eddard 4 when Ned is speaking with Catelyn about fortifying Moat Cailin. It shows his skill for tactics in war and ability to be a step ahead. If only Ned played the Game of Thrones with the same skill he had for war tactics, he and his family would be safe. And actually, think about that. During Robert's Rebellion, I mean, he's a boss. I mean, he does a lot of. He's super trusted to kind of lead, Robert's forces and stuff. So he comes to the rescue. He does a lot of good things during Robert's Rebellion. So, and yeah, that is a neat scene when he's sort of like prepping Catelyn with like, here's what we need to do. Call the banners in secret.
It's super cool. It does. It immediately makes him seem like, wow, he's like just dispatched like 10 things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, let's see. We have to pull this thread up on Facebook if you can, just to get all the other, more
that's okay.
stuff there.
But what's yours? What's one of your favorite scenes?
Oh, my favorite scene? Yeah.
So is he saying just from the books?
Yeah. So he's saying favorite scene from the series.
Are we specifically talking from the series?
From the series, book and or show. So you can go either one.
Let me see here. From the show, I mean, two of my favorite scenes are when Jon becomes king in the North. I think it's just a really cool scene. They're all sitting around the hall, and they all get up and kind of, they talk about, we should ride home, for the winter. And then Jon says, hey, I've seen winter, and it is the storm, right? And then Lady Mormont gets up and she calls everyone out, and they all they're all like, oh man, this girl just put us in our place. And then everyone stands up and crowns Jon Snow king of the North, and then you see Littlefinger and Sansa have exchanged looks, which is still like this huge big moment. But there's also the Game of Thrones being played at the same time. I think it's just done really, really well. And then of course I just love the Arya and the Hound at the end of the crossroads scene where they're arguing over chicken. I think it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it's perfect. In the books, actually, I don't know. I think it's A Storm of Swords or A Feast for Crows, where you get some of those inner monologues from Cersei, and she's talking about how much kind of a jerk that Robert Baratheon was, and how so you get to see some of her like psychological development and some of her character development as to why she is who she is, and it actually, you start to feel for her a little bit, and you start to see like, she didn't really have it easy. She was supposed to marry Rhaegar, then she gets Robert Baratheon, and he's calling out a different woman's name on the night of their bed, and then he kind of forces himself on her sometimes when he's drunk, and then he's like whoring around and all of this stuff. And so I think it's kind of cool and interesting to get her side of that story, and I think it's just I think it's some really good writing on Gur that you get that because we just finished a Game of Thrones, and in that book the only other perspective you really get is Tyrion as an outsider, and that's one of the things that you'll see in this book. You start to get these different houses' perspectives, and that really starts to, I think, change the way you view characters.
Yeah, it adds a whole other dynamic, right? Yeah, you start to
right.
This is why it's so attractive to people who maybe were like, yeah, I'm sick of being a Stark fanboy. I just want to kind of attach to House Tyrell or something, which is going to be an emerging house. And actually, when I hear about House like the Tyrells and what's the Night of Flowers and everything, it's cool. It's got a cool piece to it. And a character in that, let me find this real quick, because we're talking about favorite scenes here. So, one of my favorite scenes, obviously, is the Beric Dondarrion book and show. I think it's the calling of him, the command by Eddard Stark. I think that's epic,
Mm-hmm. Hey, in season 8, when he at the Long Night, when he just straight up throws his sword at that guy, at the
Yeah.
at the white, and like that's a pretty epic scene. And then of course when he like basically turns his sword, into like a lightsaber there, when he catches it on fire when all of the whites are charging them in season 7 when they go to try to get one so they can show Cersei in the dragon pit. That's pretty sweet. He's just like standing there, and then the next thing you know, his sword's on fire. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Let's see here, man. I even pulled up the tree and I still can't find. So it's Marjorie Tyrell's brother. I can't think of his name. Not
Loras.
Not Loras.
Oh, the one that Sansa's supposed to marry.
Yeah, he has his leg is hurt. God,
right.
I'm blanking on his name right now, and I don't know why. Loras, no, that's not it either. Anyways, yeah. So is it Willis?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
Eldest son of Mace Tyrell. Yep. Here we go. He's the heir to Highgarden. Okay. Yeah, he is a cripple with a bad leg. He is often noted as a studious, educated, and kind. He is renowned for breeding the finest hawks, hounds, and horses in the Seven Kingdoms. He sometimes flies an eagle. Okay. So, let's see. Last thing. Yeah, okay, so the last time we heard about him was in A Dance of Dragons. Sir Kevin Lannister, the regent of King Tommen the First, Baratheon, thinks that Mace wants to marry Willis to Tommen's sister, the wounded princess Myrcella. Wowzers. Okay, cool. I always just like that this was someone who, there's images of him, he's got like a cane, and I think he got hurt or something with his knee ended up getting busted or something, and then he ended up just being, crippled or whatever, but he's still extremely smart and everything. I just always wanted to see that character. I always wanted to actually meet him and see what he would be like. So, yeah, that's just kind of an odd little nugget, one of those characters I love. But yeah, for me, it's favorite scene, Beric Dondarrion. The other thing, the other scene that I like would be Core and Halfhand, when Jon and he are about to be taken. Well, actually, yeah, when they have to fight, and Jon is trying to basically showing that he is no longer a crow, and he's infiltrating Mance Raider's camp and everything like that. That's a pretty intense moment, and that's a pretty cool scene there. So
yeah,
okay. A couple more comments here. Let me go back to the Facebook group. I got this pulled up now. So we've got Sam the Hammer. It's the next chapter for me. Prologue to A Clash of Kings. Maester Cresson presents a really complex, nuanced perspective of Stannis' character. And that's true. So we talked about that last week. Cresson he cares about those boys, and he wants Stannis to smile again, or he wishes that he could. And then he also knows that Renly's out playing his game and pretending to be a wizard and then a king and what have you. So he said, so who I would argue has the greatest potential to be cartoonish without it. At the same time, we get introduced to Melisandre and Davos, a good chunk of the exposition on the recent history down at Storm's End and the relationship dynamics with all of the big players in Westeros. Then finally, Cresson takes on the Red Woman in what is a massive scene which kicks everything that Stannis goes on to do in motion. It's really dense and really well written. Yeah, you really do get like sort of some insight into the Maesters and what they believe and what maybe they're afraid of, maybe fearing what they don't understand, not wanting to make any alliance. Why didn't Cresson go and sort of like talk to her, I guess, and maybe learn from Melisandre or whatever? He's just dead set against it. He also, I think, sees that he wants the healing between Stannis and Renly, and he sees that logically there's a way. If you would just set your pride aside, here's a way in which we could make this work. But Melisandre knows that he has pride, and she's going to use that. She wants to kind of here you go, inflame or stir up his pride essentially. So she takes advantage of that. We have Lady Rebecca of House Morton. As someone who is still reading the books, I haven't got a whole book perspective yet, but my favorite moment in the show was little Lady Mormont being a badass and declaring Jon Snow King of the North. Yeah, I think that's often a lot of folks' favorites there. So favorite scene, and she was great in the last season too. Even just remember she stabs the giant in the eye. I mean, that was sick. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. So a bannerman has no name. Here we go. On the show, my favorite moment is the Tully funeral. The Blackfish stepping up, showing Edmure how it's done.
Yeah,
Man.
that is a great scene.
Yeah, epic on so many different levels. Honorable mentions go to the moments when Arya and the Hound get to the Bloody Gate, and also when Ned and Robert are sitting to dine at the side of the King's Road. These are the small yet powerful and multifaceted moments that made Game of Thrones so great, much more impactful than any big battles or spectacular visuals. Yeah, that's a good point. That's interesting. The longer, the further the story, the show progressed or whatever, I think it was harder to find those moments or to kind of heighten or focus in on some of these conversations or, and they're still there, but they maybe weren't as dense or as
well. There is a statistic I saw when people were criticizing season 8 of dialogue time. And that it drastically just goes down and down and down as the series progresses. Yeah. I
did feel like not a lot was said. It was just sort of, And again, that goes to the books aren't finished. I think a lot of that.
Right.
But those are powerful moments there. In the books, my favorite part is the prologue to for A Feast for Crows. It's so vivid, so mysterious, so thought-provoking. It oozes intrigue and the story building. It expands the world and the potential of what is to come. Okay, so I think, just because I'm curious, and we have a short chapter here, let me see. Isn't that the prologue for A Feast of Crows? Is that...
I'd have to relook at that. What happens there?
I'm pretty sure that's where what's his name is a skin changer. Let me see here. Let me just double check because I can't remember.
Varamir Six Skins.
Oh no! This is even better. This is I love this. This is when they're in Old Town and we kind of get that. Is it Jack and Hagar situation? Pate is in there with the other students, Alarius, Armin, Rune. Yeah, and. He's trying to get a key. Remember that like this
yes.
Faceless man is trying to get a key into the Citadel of Old Town. And then at the very end of that book, you get introduced to Marwyn the Mage, and you learn about the same person who is killed at the beginning of that prologue. Major spoiler, Pate he's the one who's killed at the beginning of that prologue, and then if you're really paying attention at the very end, he's sitting in there with one of the maesters. So someone took his face, someone is sitting there as Pate perusing through the Citadel of Old Town. That is cool, really cool. I couldn't remember if that was because both of those in A Dance of Dragons, you also have like the prologue there is super epic as well. Prologues are important in this series.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And the fact that and then in some of the later books they add epilogues and they're different characters as well.
Yeah, I actually, I forgot about one of the epilogues. If you remember back early on in this, in our podcast, some stuff with Kevin Lannister and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, totally different than the books.
Yeah. So, well, Sam the Hammer is talking about right there. Yeah, all the different prologues and how cool they are and the stories that are contained there. And yeah, good. Okay, let's see. Rebecca, I forgot about the Tully funeral. Yeah, the Bloody Gate. Okay, cool. So yeah, some cool stuff there. The only
the Red Wedding. Anyone say that?
No.
Favorite scene?
Didn't see that. Wow. There was only about 7 to 8 comments there.
Yeah, I died. Yeah. Just joking.
I mean, yeah.
Or what about the scene where Stannis burns his daughter? Did anyone put that in there as his favorite scene?
Gosh, no. Gosh dang it.
Thought some people might. I thought we might have some Lannister and other people loyalists in there. So,
well, okay. Actually, a scene that is talked about here by in the Captain's Report, which was back as of November 7th. I just found this. Here we go. Did Tywin know about the Purple Wedding? So Joffrey, did he know what was going on there? And we had 27 votes for no and 5 for yes. So, because if he did know, was he involved in it? Was he okay with it? Did he know about it and let it happen? Or did he have a hand in it? I think is the question there. So, yeah, some cool stuff there. So shout out to Lord Robert. Always appreciate the Captain's Report. Man.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
All right, man. All right, well, let's head on over to the reread here. This one's going to be kind of weird here, and it's going to be kind of weird for our first couple chapters here because our last POV will actually be in the previous book. So last week, we were in the prologue discussing some of our new players in the field where Maester Cresson was brooding on the omens all around him on Dragonstone when news arrives that the Storm Lords would not support Stannis Baratheon's quest to the Iron Throne. Cresson comes into conflict with Queen Selyse and the Red Priestess Melisandre over what course to take. In a desperate attempt to kill Melisandre, Cresson shares poison with her but dies while she remains unaffected. So this week we are into Arya I of A Clash of Kings. Last time we were with Arya, that was Arya 5 in A Game of Thrones. Arya is surviving on the streets of King's Landing by hunting pigeons. When she hears the summoning bells, she joins the crowd to watch her father confess his treason. Once the confession is done, King Joffrey demands his head. Arya attempts to get to him, but Yoren of the Night's Watch stops her. Afterward, he declares that she is coming with him. So now we find Arya traveling north with Yoren of the Night's Watch, disguised as a boy. When the orphan boy known as Hot Pie tries to steal her sword needle, Arya beats him bloody. Yoren then takes her aside for punishment and reveals that her father was supposed to be allowed to take the black rather than executed.
Yeah, I think that just for your reader and for Arya, that's just salt in the wound. You know, you're sort of like, what the heck, man? I mean, you already hate them. I mean, you hate the Lannisters, and you think that I couldn't hate them anymore after the beheading. And there was a little confusion. You might have seen it seemed like it was all Joffrey, but then to realize that, yeah, the Lannisters actually were going to let him go north to the Wall, like that just seriously, we were that close to keeping one of our favorite characters, and you find it out in the next book, man. It sucks, big time.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, the first little bit of the chapter here. At Winterfell, they had called her Arya Horseface, and she thought nothing could be worse. But that was before the orphan boy Lamy Greenhands had named her Lumpyhead. Her head felt lumpy when she touched it. Yet Yoren had dragged her into the alley that he thought he meant to kill her, but the sour old man had Omley held her tight, sawing through her mats and tangles with his dagger. She remembered how the breeze sent the fistfuls of dirty brown hair scattering across the paving stones toward the sept where her father had died. I'm taking men and boys from the city, Yoren growled as the sharp seal scraped her head. Now you hold still, boy. By the time he had finished, her scalp was nothing but tufts and stubble.
Yeah.
And that's honestly one of the best things that could have ever happened to her. I mean, obviously not her father dying, but Yoren being right there to kind of see the situation, realize what's going on, and immediately disguise her so he can get her out of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a question for you about Yoren. Like, do you think that the Night's Watch is not supposed to take part in all of this Game of Thrones stuff that's going on? Or the matters of the Seven Kingdoms, but they do. I would imagine that most of those men up there, just because of proximity, or maybe having, when they go into the Seven Kingdoms, the people who are more likely to believe their stories about what they see beyond the Wall would be the Starks.
Absolutely.
They're most likely to believe them, and so I think there's some sympathy there for these Stark kids, and I also think, is it that, or is it just that he knew that Eddard Stark was supposed to be there? I mean, he doesn't have to take Arya,
right?
Right?
I don't know. I don't know though. I'm looking here, and I'm looking on his wiki page, and I don't see that we ever learn like where he's originally from.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I know. At one point he does talk about Benjen Stark and how he was sort of a brother to Yoren, and so since he was also Eddard's brother, that kind of made them close in that regard. So there was that, and I think he was really respectful around Eddard. I think he had respect for the Stark family. So there's that. They're also, like I said, the kingdom that's closest to them that they would have the most interaction with over the years if you're a veteran up there. And I think that would be, I mean, Eddard Stark's the one who's dealing with deserters from the Night's Watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of think he's sympathetic here, and takes Arya, knows that she's in trouble, and he just does maybe the right thing, or what's good. He's not looking to. I don't think he's looking to gain anything out of this. The one thing it might do for the Night's Watch is if he were to bring her back to Winterfell, like that would obviously put them in high. I think Catelyn would be grateful. They might help and support the Night's Watch a little bit more, send some men. You know what I'm saying? Like it might kind of help with the relationship a little bit. Not that it's bad, but I think it would continue to kind of strengthen it, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it does look like there's a line here, just as from the wiki, and I guess it's referencing A Clash of Kings, Chapter 9, Arya 3, so we're still a bit away from that, but I think it does dive into Yoren just a little bit.
Okay.
And it talks about, it says here, just in Yoren's kind of history, that he has spent the past 30 years traveling the Seven Kingdoms and recruiting for the Night's Watch, losing only 3 recruits in that time. His travels frequently bring him to Winterfell, thus he knows the members of House Stark and certainly has a loyalty to them.
There you go. Good.
So yeah, just I mean, and of course just by proximity, and it doesn't seem likely that the people there would foster relationships against the Starks. I guess it kind of depends because obviously oh God, now I'm blanking. I should know his name. Who's the guy that Jon Snow beheads? Oh, he's the captain. He's the captains of the gold.
Janos Slynt.
Yeah, Janos Slynt. I mean, obviously, you get a guy like there. There. So, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, it definitely does happen, but I would argue that again, as you said, most of them should have more loyalty to the House Stark just because of their proximity and, of course, who Eddard Stark is.
Yeah, that might be it too, right? So they're around him, and you just know he's a stern, respectable kind of lord. I mean, even with Stannis, like besides the whole Melisandre business, he's someone who you would respect, right? Because like Davos, we see that through Davos. Like, I mean, he was basically like he wanted Stannis to be the one to take his fingers, and he knew that would be like he would accept his justice for sure, because he was a just man. If somebody who's, I don't know, stealing coppers or whatever, or dragons or whatever, the coinage, or participating in slavery and stuff like that. You remember, that's something you wouldn't want to accept, I guess, a ruling or true justice from someone like that who is secretly doing things that are mischievous or that are wrong or whatever. It'd be like Joffrey to pass a sentence over anybody. It's sort of like, really?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah. To call himself just or anything like that.
Yeah. So I just kind of wondered. It's just a different little dynamic to think about with Yoren there and why he's taking Arya there. But what I thought was really interesting, some of my bigger takeaways from this were the prisoners that he gets, which we'll get to in a little bit. I mean, they're a bad bunch, man. They're a scary group of guys, and Arya points that out in some major foreshadowing there later on. But at the beginning of this, we get introduced to kind of her friends. You have like the men, like the prisoners, and then you have like the younger boys, if you will. So you've got, Lamy Greenhands, right? Who's calling her Lumpy Head, and then Hot Pie. You've got then the Bull later. So that's kind of, those are the younger-ish. I guess the Bull, is sort of in between those characters, a little bit older. But they're mean. I mean, they're mean at first here. Arya is 2 years. What'd she say? 2 years younger than the youngest, I think. So she's the youngest, the smallest. They're skinny, but she's skinnier. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, and as you said, they're mean here. It says, it's talking about Yoren had taken grown men from the dungeons as well, in addition to kind of the orphan boys there, thieves, poachers, rapers, and the like. The worst part of the 3 he'd found in the black cells, who must have even scared even him, because he kept them, tied hand and foot in the back of a wagon, and vowed they'd stay in irons all the way to the wall. One had no nose, one had a hole in his face where it had been cut off, and the gross fat bald one with the pointed teeth and the weeping sores on his cheeks had eyes like nothing human.
Yep. Well, and here's the description I was talking about when I was talking about the wagons. They took 5 wagons out of King's Landing with all the supplies. So you've got hides and bolts of cloth and bars of pig iron, a cage of ravens, books and paper and ink, some sour leaf, jars of oil, chest of medicine and spices, teams of plow horses pulled the wagons. So just kind of cool that's the supplies he needs to gather. And there's certain things that you get around the Seven Kingdoms, and this is his job. He knows what they need. He's got his supply list, and he's trying to recruit men as best he can. And what's crazy too is the way he recruits Lami and Hot Pie is just basically pulling him out of Flea Bottom and saying, I'll give you food. I'll feed you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the best life in the world, but it's probably a better life than you're going to have here.
Yeah. Who knows what
is interesting to think about because, I'm just thinking of another character who came from Flea Bottom, who you would imagine. Thinking about Sir Duncan the Tall, right? So go back to that kind of story, the Night of the Seven Kingdoms story. Which, once again, we will tell you you should read because it's amazing.
It's amazing.
But, so you think about there's a guy who's huge, right? He's this big, clearly strong guy. And, of course, it's Arlen of Pennytree who comes and kind of saves him. But I can't imagine that nobody from the Night's Watch ever approached him and said a similar thing.
Yeah, maybe just it's timing, perhaps. I mean, I think like Davos gets out, and those who can get out, a lot of them I'm guessing don't, and they die or they starve or whatever, and they're there in King's Landing because they think the king is going to have mercy and help them, and they're poor and they're orphaned, and who's supposed to help them? Their parents were killed, or maybe they were born and dropped off. Who knows? But they're expecting aid to come right there in the city. But so many of them come, and so many of those orphans show up that I think it's always a problem. They never have enough resources, or if they do, they look over it. They look over Flea Bottom, and they spend elsewhere for defenses and different things. But yeah.
So I wonder how many people actually are presented this sort of better life by. It's almost, the Night's Watch is kind of like the military, right? Like in the United States, I think a lot of people. It's viewed a lot of times as if you want to join the military is you're given the same opportunities as everyone else who joins that, and you can make something kind of better. That's just, so that's the way it's kind of presented in the story too reminds me a lot of, or just causes me to think a lot about, what it's like to join the military. Because it is, in a way, it is kind of a military where it's very structure and rigidness and stuff to people who are from obviously not the best backgrounds.
Yeah. Here's a question to you. I mean, if and we don't know a whole lot of details about Flea Bottom. We just know that it's terrible. You can get a bowl of brown there, which sounds, I guess, tasty. If you're there, I mean, and you're offered, why didn't more young boys go? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Were these guys really just the bottom of the barrel, and they were maybe? I mean, right now they're picking on Arya, and I actually kind of wonder if they weren't the ones being picked on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but because it doesn't seem like they take all the people from the cells, which I find interesting. Because you imagine they'd just be like, yeah, get them out. But it's always like we get our pick, but they don't just immediately take everyone, and then we see that the Night's Watch is running barren. I mean, there's not that many people there, so I can't imagine that. Well, maybe they're just like, I don't want to go. And
I don't want to go.
Okay,
it's a choice.
You can stay here and rot. But I think a lot of people they view the wall as this it's frozen there. Like I'd rather stay here in a cell than go freeze and die.
See, that's crazy to me. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just because those cells are not sanitary. No, they're not whatever. It's just, I think I would be like, yeah, let me out of here. Now, maybe there are some who are being held as political prisoners, or they're being held for other reasons. Who knows? There could be some down there that they're not allowed to take or offer the black. That seems to be something that the Crown can kind of say, yeah, we can offer these men up, and if they want to take the black, then that's fair, and that's a part of the justice system. But I would go up there. You get free. You get to move around. You get to, whether you're ranging or you're at the keep, you've got a role. You have a job, and I feel like that's, even if it's freezing cold. I don't know. And
it's also a way to give yourself some honor, is you can at least put some kind of honor back to your name.
Yeah, and some of these guys have been. They know that no one's out there pushing for them to be freed or what. They get sometimes lost and forgotten in those cells, and they might have just stolen bread. They might have literally stolen bread because they were
and if you're somebody who is like, well, if you're somebody who say you want to break out, right? I mean, do you think you probably have a better chance of breaking out from the wall than you do?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're a deserter. You just and then you have to figure something else out from there. But it's probably going to be a lot harder to break out from King's Landing.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is you can desert, and instead of going south, you go north, like Mance did, and you go. Join
that's really dangerous. But
but they take them. They seem to take them. They took Manson, or did they? I mean, what's the story?
Yeah, we'll find out more about that.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to this chapter though. Just Lami and Hot Pie, they become. I kind of think maybe they were picked on a little bit, and it's almost like when you finally have that moment where okay, we're bigger, we're stronger, now we're riding on horseback, and let's pick on somebody. It just makes them feel better or something. I don't know, because like once they have this interaction with Arya, like later chapters, you really start to like Lami and Hot Pie. I mean, right? They're
well, not too many more chapters for Lami.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Not too. Yeah, but it's sort of like they're also just kids, and kids are mean sometimes, and these guys grew up without any guidance on just with nothing, and so. But here they are. They see a sword, and I feel like Lami is also trying Hot Pie. I don't really know that he had. If there was another kid his size or. Not even his size, but just even bigger than Arya, I don't think he would have gone over and tried this. It's just because she's so little,
right?
And looks are deceiving. They think they can take her, and they're trying to get her sword. That's what they notice. They want Needle, as we said. So,
yeah, and they start arguing about where she got it because from their perspective, I think there's certainly some validity into their arguments. There's no way that somebody like you could have been given this.
Yep.
It's Castle Forged steel. It's a really nice sword. You must have stole it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and she's also that's sort of a dead giveaway for her too. You almost wonder why Yoren didn't sort of say. I bet she wouldn't let him take it. I mean, that's probably what it is because this is
I'm sure.
a reminder. It's a connection to her family. But yeah, she will not give up that sword. And it doesn't seem right that she has it, so they definitely think she stole it. And they're like, well, it's not even hers, so it's fair is fair. If we can take it from you, then you took it from somebody else. And she kind of thinks, go ahead and try. I dare you to. Essentially, she's like, I'll kill him. She's thinking this. She doesn't.
She says I've killed a boy before, a fat boy, just like you.
Yep. Yeah. And so she's thinking about that, how he died, right there. Stabbed him in the belly and everything, yeah. So, so Lami just kind of agging Hot Pie on and trying to, kind of saying that I bet he's going to cry now. You want to cry, Lumpy Head, and they call her Lumpy Head because of the poor cutting of her hair, right? Is that
right?
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. She had cried in her sleep the night before, dreaming of her father. Come morning, she'd woken red-eyed and dry. And could not have shed another tear if her life had hung on it. He's going to wet his pants, Hot Pie suggested. Leave him be, said the boy with the shaggy black hair who rode up behind them. Lami had named him the Bull on account of his horned helm that he had polished all the time but he never wore. Lami didn't dare mock the Bull. He was older and big for his age, with a broad chest and strong-looking arms, which, again, just the description of Robert Baratheon when he was younger. So... yeah, they definitely won't mess with him. They're not going to mess with the Bull. But
no, because
but Hot Pie, yeah, he's right. Yeah, Hot Pie still kind of feels like he can kind of ride up there beside Arya, and when he does, she pulls out her practice sword. She tries to even offer him a sword. Like, I don't want to fight. Here's the practice sword. Take this. And he was having none of that, and he made a mistake, man. Not today is what she said. She said not today. So he tries to reach across and grab it, doesn't he?
Yeah. So they end up kind of getting into a little bit of a fight here, and then Yoren essentially kind of pulls them apart, which is right here it says, by the time Yorn pulled her off him, Hot Pie was sprawled out on the ground with his breeches brown and smelly, crying as Arya whapped him over and over. Enough, the Black Brother roared, prying the stick away from her fingers. You want to kill the fool? When Lami and some others started to squeal, the old man turned on them too. Shut your mouths or I'll be shedding them for you. Any more of this and I'll tie you lot behind the wagons and drag you to the wall. And that goes twice for you, Arya. You come with me, boy, now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I think it's also he's going to teach her a lesson here. Obviously, she gets a spanking. But he,
I don't know, man. She gets whipped.
She does. It's pretty harsh. She has to walk behind her donkey or with her donkey for 3 days or something like that. It's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And really, he's setting an example. No fighting, or this is what's going to happen to you. I mean, I don't even know. I think the way he makes it sound is like she didn't even get as worse as she had given to him.
No, not at all.
Like she really tore Hot Pie up.
She did, yeah. And so but it's good character building here for Arya, and I think this is a chapter where a lot of the big Arya fans can look to. Right here, he's so he has her go like hug a tree here, and he's gonna whip her here with a stick, and she says he tells her to scream loud because he wants the others to hear.
Yep.
So he lays the wood against the back of her bare thighs. Think that hurt? Try this one. One more, and she says, I won't cry. She thought, I won't do that. I'm a Stark of Winterfell. Our sigil is the direwolf. Direwolves don't cry. And then she feels a little bit of blood running down her left leg. So he's like, maybe I got your attention now. And another reason why he's doing it, one, I think is to set an example. Two, is because he really needs her to not cause any commotion at all. He's really kind of doing it for her benefit. She just, it's like, look, the last thing we need to do is draw any attention to us at all, because you're if anybody figures out who you are, that could be a really, really bad thing.
Yeah, I think they might ask the question like, why is she so angry? What's all this pent up, anger? And then she's crying at night. Why is she still crying? She's been taken from King's Landing. I'm guessing that they think she chose to go, or that he, air quote, chose to go. You wouldn't just take a young boy from the city without this. So what's going on? I mean, he even says that it wasn't him, meaning Hot Pie, that killed your father, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, nor that thieving Lami neither. So
hurting them won't bring her back. So he does then also kind of console her a little bit here, and he tells her what happened is that your dad was supposed to take the black, and go and come with us, but it was Joffrey. Something happened to him. He said someone should kill him. He said somebody will, but it won't be me nor you either.
Well, yeah, he just told us right there, didn't he? Someone will, but it won't be me, nor you neither. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Spoiler. But yeah. So I think it's he didn't expect this to happen. He was doing her a kindness, but at the same time can't show favoritism. A lot of different things. He's telling her where to go pee, all that stuff. So she doesn't get caught here. He didn't have to. I think it's mentioned somewhere in there, or like I don't know if he said it to her or not, but I almost wonder if he thinks twice about this. He didn't have to bring her. He does.
He absolutely
that's
did.
The thing is like, why does he? That's the big question. I wonder if he's thinking like, this is more trouble. They're going to come after her. They're going to come looking for her. He has to imagine that there might be some sort of trouble in harboring her, but. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So he does tell her though to chew on some sour leaf though to ease that pain. So there's your health tip of the day. All right.
Hey, I have never once chewed on sour leaf, nor do I ever plan on it. But yeah, I mean, does it help? Does it? I mean, you've chewed on some sour leaf.
Yeah, you remember when we were at what we call the Newark house, and I had that was it like chewing tobacco, like the Red Man chewing tobacco or something like that.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous. I don't even know. Like somebody gave it to me, and they were like, "Here, try this," and I'm like, "What is it?" and I kept the pouch in my just because it was like long leaf kind of stuff, and put a wad of that.
I think it was Josh Stryker, man.
It might have been. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Officer Josh Stryker.
Wow, there's a shout out. Holy cow.
He came. He was one of Ezra's friends. He came over, gave us some sour leaf here, and then I talked to him like twice. And the next thing you know, like 2 years later, I'm getting pulled over by him. He's a state highway patrolman.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's.
And then he let me go because I knew him. I was like, "Is Josh Stryker?" He's like, "Oh yeah."
Hey, what's up? Yeah.
So that's how Ezra Sourleaf prevented me from getting a speeding ticket.
Yeah, there we go. Full circle.
Yeah.
Hey, there was one time I was working in the old factory, and those guys, it was my last night. I was done. For the summer, it was my last shift, like 12-hour shift, and they said. They wanted me to put in a different dip every 2 hours, like a fresh dip.
Oh my God, that sounds awful.
Terrible. It was like some stupid. I was like, I can do this, no problem. Having not done it before, dude, I was throwing up everywhere, man.
Well, you definitely everywhere.
don't.
So you just chew it and spit it out, right? You don't swallow it.
I definitely didn't swallow it. No way. You just put it in the old lip. I just, it never hit the throat, man.
I mean, should I try it just
heck
first
no.
time? I mean, I bet I can handle it.
No way.
What do you gonna do? You just stick it in there and just swish it around or something?
Well, here's the thing. That was like the shortcut stuff, which
I bet
was
I could
ridiculous.
Do it, but I'm not gonna.
No. I think the longer leaf stuff is something you could kind of chew a little bit and put in the side of your. No. Here's what I used to do when I was real little. I mean, I just need the long.
Hold on a second. When you were real little.
No, the bubble gum.
You're chewing tobacco.
Big league.
Yeah.
Hey, it was Big League Chew. You remember Big League Chew? I don't know if you remember that.
So so that's bubble gum chew, right?
Yeah. But it was called Big League Chew. Yeah.
Okay, because we were just talking about chewing tobacco, and you said when I was little, and I was hold on a second.
Well, hey, I mean, my dad does chew, and I cannot tell you, we had to avoid every pop can in the house. You're trying to sneak a drink of pop in when you're little.
Oh,
and
God.
Oh my God. Let me tell you, I laughed. I saw my sister take a big old gulp one time, and I knew it wasn't pop, and I should have said something, but I was a terrible brother. I was like 10. It was terrible. So I definitely had a good laugh, and she
so gross.
Yacked.
Oh God.
Anyway, so there you go. There it is. Woo. All right.
Oh wow, it looks like we got a big raven here.
Yeah, we do. We have a big raven. So, any final thoughts on the chapter? Just, I mean, basically.
No, again, it's kind of it's introductory chapter. Just kind of again doing a little more world building now. That I think it's kind of cool in terms of world building sense, because that's really kind of Arya's setting. It's not really any particular place for the most of this book. It's more the road, kind of just out on the road, and then what they're gonna kind of face out there.
Right. Yep. And she. What's crazy is you get this at the very end of that, you get a hope. I mean, you're left with this nugget that she's going to see her brother John again.
Right.
And you're like, oh, sweet, that'll be good. No, it's like so many times where you think a character they say they're headed to this place, they never get there. They're hoping to see somebody. You hope for them to reunite with someone, and it just never takes place. And it's like, gosh, I shouldn't say never, but a lot of times you're like, wow. So. All right, yeah. So what do we got here? We got a raven, right? Let me see. Let me pull this doc back up here. This is from Sarah, right? The Unraveler.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Lady Sarah. Let me see here. This was about a Shara Dane, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So you're definitely gonna have to get the wiki ready, my friend. I want you googling.
I'll get it fired
as we go, because you know how she is. Okay, dear sirs. Now she kind of did this was sort of in our hiatus when she sent us this, and it was a follow-up to one of our Patreon episodes, and we kind of I think what we kind of determined is that and we said this back in a Game of Thrones, but I want to say it again, if you want to send us a raven about a different spot in this, if you want to send it about this chapter, or the chapter that is to come, that's totally fine. If you just in a Clash of Kings, that's great. If you want to talk about Game of Thrones or Dance of Dragons or Winds of Winter or whatever, still send those ravens. We're still going to read them. And I think this is the spot when we get like a nice sort of detailed raven about another character who maybe we haven't met yet or whatever. And we'll just kind of let everybody know that this is, again, it's a reread podcast. And for some folks, it's an initial read. And this might be where they kind of say, okay, these guys are about to read about something that I haven't learned about yet. Either I can stick around or I know I can dip out and we're good to go. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear. I loved I loved, that was the one thing I loved about Follow Up Friday, is we were just literally all over the freaking place.
All over the place, yeah.
And it was great. And it's tough. It's tough to kind of keep up and remember because it's such a just a thick series, you know? Okay. Dear Sirs, the Patreon episode on Miss Ashara Dane was as fine as a Dornish red could be. Bold, rich, and left me dizzy in thought. I no longer drink, but I still know things. Okay. It was very possible that Ashara Dane was indeed the actual Knight of the Laughing Tree. And so she's kind of referring to our Harrenhal series, where we discuss a little bit more about Ashara Dane and then even possibly who is the Knight of the Laughing Tree. When the Reeds tell the story of Harrenhal to Bran, there is an obvious affection for Ashara that can be felt from the details Howland supplies. Whether it is romantic affection or just a deep-seated respect towards her, it's clear she is held with high regard. Perhaps this is because she defended him at Harrenhal. Lyanna was wonderfully a wonderfully wild little she-wolf, northern princess. But Ashara was the little sister of Sir Arthur freaking Dane. Yeah, that's actually how we say it on the show. Sir Arthur freaking Dane, yeah. The Sword of the Morning, wielder of the dawn. I can hear it. I can literally hear it in her voice. The ill-fitting armor and a demand for respect for even the smallest of lords seemed like it could fit like a glove. She would have been trained somewhat by proxy. So is she saying Ashara Dane, is the Knight of the Laughing Tree? Okay, yeah.
Okay. Hey, there's definitely some people that think that.
Okay. Like Arya watching all of her brothers, this wouldn't be all that different. She would have been equipped with confidence and, quote, know-how to demand attention from an audience and kick those frat boy lordlings off their high horses. So what happened next? The Mad King wanted answers. His paranoia would not let this slight go. I believe he truly thought Jaime defied him and stayed to compete against his wishes. Aerys sent his men to get the Knight of the Laughing Tree and found it was not the newest member of the Kingsguard, but the sister to its most prominent figure, the best friend to Rhaegar Targaryen. When a father spends his waking moments fearing his son, it is a cycle that cannot be broken until he is removed from the equation. Finding out that Ashara Dane was behind the armor would only confirm to King Aerys that Rhaegar was at Harrenhal to switch their roles and power. So basically, Ashara Dane is sister to Sir Arthur Dane, who is best friends with Rhaegar. So if she's the one there, pulling all these shenanigans and pissing off the Mad King, then that's only going to heighten his paranoia. His fear of his own son had plagued him for years, rotting him away from heart to mind. I can only imagine the spiral of chaotic energy that came from Aerys in these moments, an energy he inflicted upon everyone at any time for any reason. Did King Aerys get so worked up over the Knight of the Laughing Tree that when he found out it was the sister of his own Kingsguard, that he unleashed his worst? Sir Barristan is an earnest narrator at best in his point of view chapters. However, he produces very valuable information about two little-known women in the series, Ashara and Rhaella, Dany's mother. He states someone dishonored Ashara at Harrenhal, thinking Ned Stark, though he should have been thinking more Targaryen. He also informs us that poor Rhaella was subjected to violence and her body taken against her will repeatedly by her paranoid, insane, and extremely vicious husband. Now, would it be so far a stretch as to imagine King Aerys inflicting his twisted will against other women? Cough, Joanna Lannister, cough, wife of Tywin, former lady in waiting to Rhaella, dismissed when whispers of Aerys sleeping with her came about. Wow. There are lion-sized rumors that all of Tywin's 3 golden children could actually be Aerys. However, it is beyond clear that Joanna would never willingly participate in Aerys' escapades. A young King Aerys was no better than the older, Vain and entitled to anything he believed he could have, Ares took cruel pleasure in baiting Tywin. He was jealous. Jealous Tywin had Joanna. Jealous Tywin had twins. Jealous Tywin and Joanna truly loved each other. He exercised his king's right on their wedding and clearly violated her before and after. All of this being said, could this vile man have done the same to poor Ashara? Let me pause right there. So, really, the recap in that is that Ashara Dane is the Knight of the Laughing Tree, and upon running away or whatever, ditching the armor, ditching the shield, they track her down, find out that it's Ashara, take her back, and the Mad King does what he does, is cruel and forces himself on her. And the evidence is there in that he's, that with Tywin's wife, taking his right, the things that he did to his own wife, and he's just become sort of this monstrous, paranoid, crazy creature. Well, here we go. This monstrous creature did not just love to take advantage of women in general. He liked very specific women who are strong-willed and not easily taken aback by the windy words of kings, women who have an understanding of themselves in a time where that should be impossible, women who are also attached to strong, good men he could never be like or would even want to be like. Why? He is a taker that does not understand how to give. You give to him and he takes. You don't give, he takes anyways, harder and worst. What would he take away from a young woman who humiliated him in front of the prominent houses in his kingdom, his family, and common folk alike? He won't be giving out any slaps on the wrist or any pardons or giving her any grace to atone for this display of grandeur. No, he will take her. He will take from her what he has taken from others like her before. It is highly likely and highly probable that King Ares raped her as the absolute worst revenge for being the Knight of the Laughing Tree. His history spells it out. Months after Harrenhal, she supposedly gave birth at Dragonstone. So did Rhaella, and wouldn't you know it, it was around the same time Dany was born. Seven hells, what a coincidence. Ashara's daughter was said to have died shortly before or after her birth. In the real world, both older and younger women have healthy babies all the time, so in the terms of this book, let's stick with this. Ashara, being the younger mother, would have a higher chance in her baby surviving and thriving, while Rhaella, being older and weaker, would have a harder time producing the same results. Perhaps Rhaella lost a baby at Dragonstone instead. That would be true to her history. She's always had trouble bringing children to term. She had been plagued by the Targaryen curse of churning out heir after heir. Her poor body was broken from every time her husband forced himself upon her and attacked her violently. This is a detail in both A Song of Ice and Fire and in A World of Ice and Fire, somewhat graphically and very sadly. Sir Barristan reports that the last attack was roughly about 9 months prior to Dany's birth. 2 baby girls born on one island around the same time. But if they both lived and grew up to be Dany and Val, well, there you go, there's a little twist.
There you go, yeah.
Starting to think Mance is Sir Arthur Dayne again. Or, so here we go, a couple of different possibilities she lists here at the end of this just to kind of sum this up. Or she conceived a baby with Ned that died shortly after he was made to marry Catelyn Tully after the death of her brother. Grief can be a tricksy bird and can drive the sanest person mad, so it is entirely possible that within the proper timeline, the death of her brother, the loss of a fast yet deep love stolen from her, and a stillborn child is motivation enough to throw yourself from the highest tower of whatever castle you're in. Or she ran off with Hallan and produced Mira and Jojen with no desire to enter the Seven Kingdoms again. Still, she would have been found by now. But who at this point would really be looking for her? Or she's hanging out with Tyrion on a boat on the other side of the world pretending to be Septa, totally over that dead baby and Harrenhal. Lady Sarah the Unraveler. So a lot there, my friend, a lot of different possibilities, and suggestions as to... The one that really struck me is the one I haven't really ever
thought about the idea of being the mother of Daenerys and Val, with the Mad King possibly, taking himself upon her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she is at court quite often. It could be another reason why Rhaegar is, has issues with his dad. I mean, there's definitely, I think, some plausibility to that one.
Yeah, and what I thought she was going to say at the end there was that instead of it being Val, that if one child had died, if Rhaella's child had died, and maybe Asharis had lived, and the Danes and Targaryens, they both got those violet kind of eyes, and you could see maybe someone like Ashara with a Targaryen producing someone with real strong Targaryen features. It could have been Dany. Really, because actually both Val and Dany, would, if we're talking about just those two characters, then yeah, they both have that Targaryen-like features, somewhat in Val and more so in Dany. But yeah, I was thinking she was going to go with just like a baby swap, maybe like the older mother didn't carry her baby to term, but then Ashara did, and this was a way to kind of maybe help preserve Maybe Viserys knew that, maybe he didn't. Maybe the Danes knew, or not Danes, but the Martells knew about it, and they're making a secret pact. I don't know. There's still a lot to kind of figure out with Ashara Dane. We don't really know. We're still getting mention of her. We get it in A Game of Thrones, A Storm of Swords, and A Dance of Dragons. She's mentioned, almost throughout the entire series, and by pretty interesting characters who keep kind of hearkening back to her and her. Just being beautiful, and Ser Barristan was someone who loved her, and it's sort of like, why is this character still relevant? Why is she still a big deal? I mean, she's brought up as a big deal in A Game of Thrones when it's Catelyn is confronting Eddard Stark about whether or not he slept with her, and did he have a child? Is that Jon's mother? Is that's sort of that rumor that he puts down. He doesn't want to hear any more about it, and her name was never mentioned again up in Winterfell. So. It's just, I don't know, a lot of different thoughts. It's crazy to think, though. My only qualm with that is that I'm not so sure if Sir Arthur Dayne and those guys are willing to plot against the king. I don't think they're willing to hand over his sister, to the Mad King. That's the only thing.
Right. Yeah, that's.
But then back to Ser Barristan saying someone dishonored her at Harrenhal. Who was that?
Exactly.
I can see why Sarah is trying to put those together. We just don't know. I mean, she made the case, and I think, you totally can. I think it's a case to be made. He is that type of guy. It depends on it depends on who found the Knight of the Laughing Tree. If Rhaegar didn't find the knight and only found the shield and the armor or whatever, did someone else from King Aerys find her? You know what I mean? And then he only found what was left of the armor and everything else, and maybe someone found out that it was her, and it was Aerys, his own, I don't know, like a closer. I know he has the Kingsguard, but I wonder if there was some of his own secret, men who kind of got a hold of her or something. Maybe, I just don't know. I definitely don't think that Sir Arthur Dayne would turn over his sister to the Mad King.
Yeah, it does seem unlikely. But then again, I mean, you're also a member of the Kingsguard. I mean, so you're in that position.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Yeah,
you're in that position where what are you gonna do, right? I mean, it's Jamie was in that position, and he said, "Well, I'm gonna stab you in the back and save everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna."
Yeah, I mean, Jamie also had to stand by and listen to Robert being there with other women and whoring around and then treating his sister poorly, and he stood by while all of that was happening. You know what I mean? And all the meanwhile, they're kind of plotting the king's death. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's cool. It's cool. Like, a lot of different ways you can go with Ashara Dayne. It's interesting for sure. It's kind of graphic and crazy, but that's the Mad King. He's a brutal dude. I mean, just.
It's what really makes it. It's great. I mean, it is kind of, we have Joffrey. It's kind of interesting because we see Joffrey and we see Ramsay, and we think about all these kind of evil jerk people, and we see them, but then you hear about the Mad King, and he really kind of makes even them seem not nearly as bad. And so it's like this character we're constantly hearing about as this really, really evil guy. So I think he's a great villain in the story.
Here's an interesting. Yeah, you're right, 100%. An interesting quote, and we've read what Sir Barristan kind of his thoughts about the tourney at Harrenhal and Ashara Dane, but he does say this, and this is just off the wiki. And this is his own internal thoughts. She died never knowing that Sir Barristan had loved her. How could she? He was a knight of the Kingsguard, sworn to celibacy. No good could have come from telling her his feelings. No good came from silence either. If he had unhorsed Rhaegar and crowned Ashara Queen of Love and Beauty, might she have looked to me instead of Stark?
Yeah.
Instead of Stark. So in his mind, it's Stark, that she looks to. So that's wild. It kind of confirms what Catelyn Stark had said before, and also it more reaffirms. We often talk about he wished that he were a more honorable knight on that day, or that he had kind of been, I don't know, more knightly or just true. But it looks like he's inferring, or I can infer from that he thinks he could have unhorsed Rhaegar, and it was simply a choice not to. It was a choice. He chose to not unhorse him. But if he had have chose to unhorse him,
could he have? Do you think you could have?
He says and this, we're talking about the boss of all bosses here. So being Barristan the Bold. If I had unhorsed Rhaegar, so and I kind of
I thought he says that I thought his line is if I'd been a better knight.
That's one too. That's another one. Which you put those two together, and that's where I'm thinking. I think it was a choice that he chose to not unhorse him. You could take that as like, well, if I would have beat him, I just didn't beat him.
Right.
Too bad I didn't.
Right.
But I kind of think he could have. Maybe chose not to. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Boy.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for the Raven, Lady Sarah. That is great. That is. I mean, anytime we get to dive into some of the stuff that happens before the series, I think that's still kind of some of the most exciting stuff. The stuff surrounding Harrenhal, Robert's Rebellion, the Mad King.
Yeah.
It's just
mysteries.
Yeah. So. It's great.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. Thank you. So, all right. Well, Sir Ezra, I think it's time to sign off here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to mention that if you're interested in that Patch Face episode up on Patreon, that will be there. And later this month, we're also going to be doing our Harrenhal series, finishing up that part 4 for you guys, and then we got to pick a different series to kind of dive into for the next couple months. We're open in 2020 to lay out a new calendar for the series, so be sure to check that out.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 2, Sansa 1.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that the night is dark and full of terrors.